Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this regular meeting of the City of Dieppe on February 10th. We'll start with our opening announcement. Dear colleagues, give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. We'll call the meeting to order. Confirmation of quorum. Everyone is here this evening. Conflicts of interest? None. Now for the adoption of the agenda. Moved by Councillor Cormier, seconded by Councillor Leblanc. For the question. No questions on the agenda. We'll continue with all those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. The agenda is adopted as presented. Before going any farther, I want to mention that the third meeting of the month for public policies, which should take place on February 18th. No, rather the 17th, because it's a holiday. So we'll have it, it should have been on the 18th, but it won't take place this month because we don't have enough subjects to discuss for this reading. So for March, we'll hope it will be different. So we'll continue now with presentations, inquiries, and petitions. 7.1, I received a message from the Superintendent Critchlow that Inspector Gillette, that should be here to replace him, will not be here tonight because they received a call at the last minute. So if you have any complaints about the RCMP or any comments, I would suggest that you would send them to our city manager, who will send them to the RCMP. With 7.2 presentations, policy RH7 on the workplace violence. And we'll welcome Christine. Good evening. Good evening, Your Worship. I'm Christine Roy-Caro, and I'm in human resources and work relations for the city of Dieppe. And I'm talking to you tonight about a policy that we have established. To start, why should the city have such a policy? The government of New-Brunswick has an amendment in the regulations on violence in the workplace. Work Safe and B, respecting the Occupation Health and Safety Act, has added that all employers adopt procedures respecting violence in the workplace. As an employer, we have evaluated the risks, which WorkSafe has directed us in the workplace to evaluate the risks of violence in the workplace here in Dieppe. It was done with the collaboration of Human Resources and Health and Safety Committee and many persons responsible of sectors with the evaluation of risks. With WorkSafe and B, we've worked with other municipalities as well who worked on this policy. So we've adopted a policy and directives. The mission of this policy is to have a zero tolerance respecting violence on the workplace. We have a code of directives that are practical for employees with advice for the employers. This policy is a supplement to the harassment policy in the workplace. The objectives is to produce physical, psychological integrity and dignity of our employees, their safety, and we also want to educate people and prevent risks associated to violence in the workplace. The more we talk about it, the better it is. We want to promote the position of tolerance zero tolerance, and we want to define the roles and responsibilities of personnel and identify all the non-compliance possibilities. And we want to encourage people concerned to get help with the Employee Assistance Program. The scope of application applies to all employees, elected officials, citizens, members of committees, and everywhere on the workplace during work hours. So the definition of violence in the statute includes the workplace, any real or tangitive recourse to physical force against an employee, or menacing or any menacing behavior so that the person will lead the person to believe that he will be victim to such a recourse, be it sexual violence, violence within partners, or family violence. And like I said, with this policy, we have a practical code of directors. In Dieppe, we have different establishments, workers, and realities, so nobody works with the same reality. So there could be different situations where they could deal with the public, for instance, and suffer violent. So the objective is to identify the jobs that are considered at risk and to inform the employers of any prevention measures and to establish a policy so that any incident of violence would be reported. The next steps after the adoption of the policy would be to have information sessions for our employees. We would do it within sectors and departments because everybody has a different reality in the city of Dieppe. And we want to go ahead with a procedure for the visitors as well to minimize risks. And we want to work with an expert in building safety to see what we could improve and what recommendations could be brought forward. So that's it. Any questions from councillors? That's clear. Thank you for your presentation. The next step, of course, will be to accept the policy at a meeting tonight, for instance. Yes, it's on tonight. Thank you. At item number 8, do we have any questions by members of the public? No? Now, 9, adoption of minutes of the last meeting on January 27th. Moved by Councillor Brideau, seconded by Councillor Arsenault for the question. No questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. So the minutes are accepted. Item number 10, motions, memorandums, and nominations. 10.1, administration. Mr. Melanson. Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everyone. For the first item, we have a proclamation for the Council. We're asking for support. We take this seriously. We've had discussions with the mayor's office, and we thought it was important. This proclamation, when it will be read, will show the public that you're supporting to this organization. This is for the International Day of Zero Tolerance for Female Genital Mutilation. Thank you for the reading. Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. Whereas International Day of Zero Tolerance for Female Genital Mutilation, FGM, is observed around the world, it provides an opportunity to honor those women, girls, boys, and men who are actively and courageously working towards an end to this harmful practice. Whereas this day invites us to reflect on the fact that 3.9 million girls are still at risk of mutilation each year, including girls in Canada. Whereas on this day, we acknowledge that female genital mutilation is an issue on every continent except Antarctica, and there are 200 million FGM survivors in the world, including thousands in Canada. Whereas we acknowledge that FGM has no basis in any religious text and is recognized by the United Nations and other world bodies as child abuse and an abuse of a girl's fundamental human rights. Whereas we acknowledge that FGM has no benefits and causes only harm, including death, difficulties with urination, menstruation, sexual intimacy, post-traumatic stress disorder, and increased maternal and child mortality. Whereas on this International Day of Zero Tolerance for FGM, we acknowledge and celebrate all national and international efforts being made, especially at the grassroots level, to achieve United Nations Sustainable Millennium Development Goal number 5, which calls for the elimination of FGM and other harmful traditional practices by 2030. And whereas on this day of zero tolerance, we call for increased concerted global and Canadian action to end female genital mutilation and ask all governments, international, national, and local, to fully uphold the human rights of women and girls so they can live a life free from the violence that is female genital mutilation. Be it resolved that the Dieppe Municipal Council hereby proclaim February 6, 2020 as International Day of Zero Tolerance for Female Genital Mutilation in the city of Dieppe. I so move. Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Arsenault. For the question? None? Carried. I think we must mention this. We received this from the federal government, and our municipal manager stated that we're not used to reading these proclamations, but in this case, we are committed to the feminine cause in general and immigration. We know that these problems come from countries in which this practice is still taking place, unfortunately. All those in favor of this resolution signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. I'm happy to move this proclamation. The next item, 10.2.1. Mr. Lazo, here we have a recommendation for the food concession at the Uniplex that's being built. It'll open in the fall. It's recommended to offer to Gusto Catering. So we want everyone to understand the nature of this and the process. So in March 2019, we started an RFP. We received one proposal, the others didn't, and that didn't answer to our criteria. So we had to have a second RFP. We had one proposal, and with this initiative, we can have negotiations. So the company that we're negotiating with is for a period of 5 years. And we asked the concession to have insurance in place. He will operate the canteen, and there will be distribution machines as well as catering at the Uniplex. He'll be responsible for the whole complex. With the products, he is committed to have 70% of healthy food, and as well alcohol, beer, and wine only when they will meet the criteria to receive a permit from the province. With respect to rent, they will have to give 10% of their sales. And the city of Dieppe has given $25,000 to buy kitchen equipment. This is a contribution that would help him to invest in the equipment. This equipment, when it is bought, will belong to the municipality, so at the end of the contract, it will be ours. These are the general points. We have people present here tonight to represent this entity. The staff has recommended this, and if there are any questions, we can ask them. For the resolution, Councillor Alain. Thank you, Your Worship. The Council authorized the municipal signing officers to sign the food concession contract for the Uniplex between the City of Dieppe and Gaston's Catering, brackets 2008, Inc., for a 5-year period starting on the Uniplex's opening date in the fall 2020. Moved by Councillor Alain, seconded by Councillor Leblanc. For the question, Councillor Boutier. Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question for information purposes. When I look at the contract, you see renewal for 5 years, but there is no definition on this renewal in the contract. Do we have this option? It's a bit vague. Mr. Bourque. The two parties will have to be in agreement. If there are items from one party or the other, we could discuss it. And the renewal will have the same terms and conditions unless renegotiated. Usually we see this in the provisions, we see it in the contract more specifically. I didn't see it in the contract to protect the city and the two parties as well, so that everybody knows what the rules of the game are on the renewal. If you see section 2, the agreement states that there is a renewal option for another 5 years. It's on page 33 in your packages. Duration and effective date.
Five years, starting in fall 2020. The precise date will be confirmed at a later time and annexed to this agreement.
Do I understand? I didn't have the same package? Was that it? Oh, page 32. I have it page 33. I don't know what would change the number of the page. It's a question. I just wanted information. That's all. Thank you. Thank you. No other questions. One other question, Councillor Arsenault. Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to tell the municipal manager that I'm very happy that to see that we had a presentation on this from Mr. Gaston Catering, and he met all the criteria, and I just wanted to say that we honor our regulations, and we're trying to do the best for the city of Dieppe. Thank you. All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Carried. Thank you. We shall continue with the next item. Transit service. 10.3.1, you have a version on your desk. The Governance Committee is meeting in the next few days, and each year there is a question of free transit for certain events. So we're asking every city to take a position and support this for public transit. So the resolution is clear. It's for the Environment Week in June, Climate March September, and municipal elections, provincial, federal elections involving Dieppe citizens. So it was brought forward by the Governance Committee. Councillor Godet for the reading. Thank you, Your Worship. The Council accepts the proposal submitted to the Governance Committee for free public transit on the following days. From Wednesday to Friday during Environment Week in June, Day of Climate March in September, Day of all municipal elections, provincial or federal, involving Dieppe residents. In May, I so move. Moved by Councillor Godet, seconded by Councillor Cormier. For the question? No questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Carried as presented. Number 10.3.2 for transit service on statutory holidays. We recommend not to support this initiative by Kodiak Transpo. We think that active transport should be at the basis for all decisions taken, and this doesn't follow. So the next file we're presenting, we're talking about free transportation for 17-year-olds or less. We want some sort of stability, so we don't want to proceed with this one. Thank you. For the reading of the resolution, Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council maintain the status quo in regards to the public transit service in Dieppe and refuse the approach of added public transit service on statutory holidays in 2020. I so move. Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Godet. For the question? No questions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Carried as presented. 10.3.3 for the transit service. Pilot project extension. Yes, of course. Here we have the intention to pursue our pilot project for free transportation for 17-year-olds or younger. So we have 400 youth that register for this program. They have a card that they can activate for free transportation. We want to extend it for one more year so that we can evaluate it better and see what it'll bring. So this is a recommendation to extend this pilot project. For the reading of the resolution, Councillor Boutier. The Council accept the extension of the pilot project offering free public transit service to Dieppe youths 17 and under until December 31st, 2020. I so move. Moved by Councillor Le Boutier, seconded by Councillor Brideau. For the question. Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. I read in the documentation that we had recommendations following a survey, and what recommendation was to make it up until 18 years old. Is there any reason why this wasn't done? I think it would be a good idea. A lot of youth at Mathieu Martin are 18 years old, and they could take advantage of this. Mr. Richard, rather. Oh, you know better than that. Yes. In principle, the youth that are 18 years old can still use it. It's up until the end of their grade 12. A few of them are already 18 years old in this year, but it ends on August 31st. That's what we did at first. So a person who is 18 years old up until, if he's 18 years old in March, then he's got the pass until the end. When he goes to university, of course, it's different. So we gave ourselves that limit. Thank you. If there are no other questions, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Carried as presented. 10.3.4 Ad hoc Committee under study. When this file came up on transportation system everywhere in Canada, and last January we had a permanent committee, the standing committee, and council was asked to create a work committee. So before us we have a mandate for a committee to study our transit system in Dieppe and to make recommendations for people who have interest in public transportation. So if this is to put in place such a committee tonight. Thank you for the reading of the resolution. Councillor Brideau. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council create an ad hoc committee to study new approaches to public transport and to submit its recommendations to Council no later than April 27, 2020. That Council accept that the composition of said committee be established as follows: 1 member of Council, 1 staff member, ex officio member, minimum of 4 members of the community with at least 2 representatives per gender from among the following: representative for seniors, representative for youth, representative for bus system users in Dieppe, representative for shuttle service users, representative for private sector, for example, airport, nursing home, etc., representative for public sector, for example, CCNB, DSF, South, etc. I so move. Moved by Councillor Brideau, seconded by Councillor Godette. On the question. No questions? All those in favor? Excuse me. A question from Councillor Leboutier. Thank you, Your Worship. When I looked at this before coming, I had that reflection about this ad hoc committee. My question is, we'll have to make big decisions, and we need a plan for 5 to 10 years, and technology is so important. There's so many changes. And even I saw in Quebec on the weekend, they submitted a transportation mobility app on one platform. And when I see this ad hoc committee, is it realistic that this committee can be created without an expert to group around to make a good diagnosis, to see what we need and what exists? with the whole committee. So I would recommend to see, does such an expert exist at reasonable cost, of course, to help us to make a good choice. That's what I recommend. Thank you. That's a good idea, good suggestion. Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question. When you talk about the composition of the committee and a minimum of 4 members from the community, and we have 6 groups here listed, wouldn't it be important to have 1 member from each one of these groups? We're talking about a minimum of 4 here. Yes, I know. So you answered your own question. Yes, but I wanted to be sure. Thank you. Councillor Cormier. Thank you, Your Worship. The date line, isn't it a bit short? So, April 27th, and already we're February 10th. That's my fear with respect to this. We're limiting ourselves as with this date to April 27th. That's one point, but the other factor is that we could impose something to a future council. So perhaps we shall wait to see how the work goes, and if it's necessary, we could prolong it and extend it then. But it will be for a new city council. Maybe it will be easier to discuss the subject. At least we'll have meat around the discussion. Does anyone want to move an amendment? We don't want to go to December or July. 1 month more, perhaps, with the end of the month of May. My suggestion would be September or the end of June, so it could be presented, because you know what's happening in the month of May, and we won't have any council meetings. What about June? Do you agree? Mr. Richard, do you agree? It's council that must decide. The intention for the 27th would be to have a recommendation before the elections. But we can continue this study. We can push it back to the end of June, so we give the next council to the file. We could have done it before the 27th. We realize that it's a dateline that's fast approaching. Do we have an amendment? So we'll go to June 30th. So moved by Councillor Godet, seconded by Councillor Alain for the amendment. Any questions on the amendment? No questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. The amendment is accepted by the council. So we'll go to the initial resolution. Councillor Brideau had moved it, and it had been seconded. It's not yet seconded, so it'll be seconded by Councillor Leboutier. For the question, Councillor Alain. Thank you, Your Worship. There's a lot of talk about this. Frederick did talk about Uber, and that's the approach that we're going to take, but they're integrated into the decisions that are coming up. It's very interesting. In LIF, we talked about in Nova Scotia. It's interesting. So that's part of all the elements that were presented at the meeting we had about a month ago in January. So the committee will study all these possibilities and any possible integration, all the different mediums. So for the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. As amended, of course. Carried. Thank you. Item 10.4.1 from Human Resources, as presented to us tonight for the reading. The Council adopt policy RH7 relating to workplace violence. I so move. Moved by Councillor Leplan, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau. For the question. Councillor Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. On page 85, we have definitions, and it seems that there's a sentence that's not good in French. Any behavior that is menacing for the client. Shouldn't we put rather than the person would reasonably think, that a reasonable person would think instead? We borrowed the exact words from the Occupation Health and Safety Act. We recognize as well that the language is not usual, but we wanted to respect the new regulations because work safe and be asked us to abide by their definitions. Another question. The definition of employee. I'm wondering if we could include contract workers. They're sort of our employees in a way, and they should be part of this. They're included in the policy. I can't remember which paragraph, but it's there. I can't find it right now, but they're indicated. We say that any act of violence committed by a person, including staff, members of public, elected officials, etc. Perhaps it could be included in the definition as well. I'll make a note of that. Yes, it's in the beginning, but it should be in the definition as well. Does everyone agree? Then we're not going to have to go make an amendment to change this text. Any other question, comment? No? We're ready for the resolution. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Policy RH7 is carried. Public Works, a purchase of a tractor. We went to RFP. We had 6 proposals, and we recommend Nova International Limited. This is for a municipal fleet. It's our vehicle for 2005 should be replaced. So this is a cost of $70,236 plus HST. So we recommend the purchase of this tractor. Councillor Leblanc for the reading. Thank you, Your Worship. The Council award the contract for the purchase of a tractor and accessories for the Recreational Facilities Division to Nova International Ltd. at the cost of $70,236.62 plus HST, pursuant to its proposal dated January 15, 2020, and authorize this expenditure be defrayed from account number 33-2012-7903, General Capital Budget, General Equipment Purchase, CLCLD. I so move. Moved by Councillor Leblanc, seconded by Councillor Brideau. For the question, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye. Contrary minded, nay. Carried as presented. Item number 10.5.2, it's about the same. This time it's a sidewalk tractor. Councillor Leblanc for the reading. The Council award the contract for the purchase of a sidewalk tractor for the Public Works Department to McFarland's Industrial at the cost of $113,496.90 plus HST, pursuant to its proposal dated January 15, 2020, and authorize this expenditure be defrayed from account number 33-2012-7901, General Capital Budget, General Equipment Purchase, PW. Moved by Councillor Leblanc, seconded by Councillor Cormier. For the question, none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Carried as presented. No bylaws tonight. Notice of motion, none. We'll proceed with inquiries and announcements by members of council. And I'll start with Councillor Godet. Thank you, Your Worship. I wanted to start by wishing everybody a happy Valentine's Day. And I would like to mention that I had the chance to go to the Valentine's Day Gala of the Dumont, and it was full. They collected more than $127,000. It was quite successful, and I want to congratulate them, to all the organizers of the event. It was a classy event, and I'm sure the administrators of the hospital, the Dumont Hospital, are very happy with the results. Secondly, I want to mention that I'm very happy to see the lights installed on Amiro and Melançon. I had mentioned this last year, and the study showed that there was a need. Let's hope now that people will stop crossing the private parking lots of Saint-Anselme Church to turn left and use the lights. It will help, especially in the morning, because there will be more space, open spaces on the road going towards Acadie. People will be able to come out of Vanier more easily now because cars will be stopped at the lights. So thank you for installing these lights. I think people will be very happy. That's it, Your Worship. Thank you. Councillor Leblanc, I have nothing for tonight. Councillor Cormier, I want to congratulate the Matadors from Mathieu Martin to have won in Fredericton the first weekend in February for high schools. Thank you, Councillor Cormier. Councillor Brideau, I have nothing this evening, thank you. Councillor Le Boutillier, I would like to congratulate all the staff and everyone that participated on the weekend. We had bad weather, but we did very well. We hope to reach another level next year. A lot of people attended, and then there's Family Day. It'll be the second year? in New-Brunswick on this weekend, so be careful. We'll have events for the city of Dieppe next Monday. That's it. Thank you. Councillor Thibodeau. I have nothing this evening, Your Worship. Councillor Arsenault. Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to say have fun, be safe, and happy Valentine's Day. Thank you. Councillor Alain, I hope everybody has a very wonderful, happy Valentine's Day, and I hope there's a lot of chocolate. And next week, Family Day. And we see on Twitter a lot of people are talking about our trails. They're running and they go to the parks, and people go to our arenas in the winter, and the skating oval is very popular. It's nice to see that, and I hope it continues. And as His Worship has mentioned, the Rotarians did a lot of good work for the Dieppe Carnival. At the Rotary Park for breakfast, I couldn't go there. I was in Fredericton. And the Rotarians are the best group in New-Brunswick. This is the second edition of oysters. It's an excellent event. It'll take place on February 22nd at St. James Gate. You can get your tickets Eventbrite. It's from until 11 p.m. So it's great for the community. So let's support our Rotarians. Thank you. The event was a great success last year. For the first year, they have to go bigger. Now they need more space. Unfortunately, I won't be in the region that evening, so I'll miss it. Once again, have a wonderful time at the carnival. Everything is going well, and it's wonderful to hear positive comments of people that come here, visitors, not only for our residents, we do it for them, but when we see the visitors that come and give us positive comments, I think it's important that we relay them to staff to tell them that their work is appreciated, and our buildings are very clean, our facilities. So good evening to everyone, and we'll be very active in our community until our next meeting. Good night.